Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 22 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I have Harvey Green with me. Harvey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Look like you're in your lair.
I
I know you're
am
home from vacation. I guess summer's over, right? So the whole thing's just shot.
pretty much.
And I look forward to the fall, but it goes by way so fast, way too fast.
Yeah, agreed.
And then the year will be over. Jaira, you're sitting there in your control room. It looks like. I have a question. Why does your, I guess, Mac have two keyboards on it?
Because I'm indecisive. This one's like the official Apple keyboard, but right now I'm currently daily driving my gaming mechanical keyboard connected to the laptop, and I like both for different reasons, but I'm currently doing this one more often.
Okay, so with the dimensions of the camera, it looked like it was actually a laptop with another keyboard embedded on top of it. I was like, man, that's like the organist that has two keyboards, so he can use them both at the same time. That's pretty impressive.
I hadn't thought about it like that. I can currently see 3 full keyboards where I'm sitting, yeah, but I will use one. So
yeah, I guess using more than one keyboard at a time is not possible, but maybe somebody out there does.
You're constrained by hands or something like that.
I think Jerry can do it.
I mean, I've done sillier things that wasted more time before. So,
so you guys, while you're waiting on me, picked a blog called Trekking Through IT's Automation Transformation by Mark Goldner over on the Nutanix team. We were chit-chatting a little bit before we hit record. And I guess I'm a big fan of automation. And maybe this tool is going to be part of the answer of automating lots of things in IT. I somewhat struggle with automating just because it makes people dumb. Like they automate something and maybe they don't fully think through it. And when it breaks, everybody around them just stops and looks at them like, okay, now you're going to fix it. Help me understand why you guys chose this topic.
well, that's interesting. I was going to kind of lead off with, probably the similar thesis as the blog post of automation is a good thing and need to do more of it. Your point of view sounds almost more interesting, Andy, like I don't know, risk of automation, a side effect of automation to be managed.
I think I've had good experiences and bad experiences where systems administrators have I use the word half-ass automated something and only gotten so far with it and really caused more problems than good. And I've also had situations where, automation done by, say, a Unix administrator enabled one person or a team of 2 or 3 to run an entire data center because of the automation and tools around it. And this is 20 years ago when I used to see this happen. So I guess I've seen both sides of automation being successful and failing.
So my first thought or my first question there is, automation is just, of course, it's the same tasks that we would do as a human, right? So do you feel like, let's just accept whatever blend you want to say you've seen there of good and bad automation, same blend, better blend, worse blend as just regular humans doing regular manual tasks, right? Does it, even with some warts, do we still drive towards reduced downtime, better uptime, faster deployments?
Well, in theory, when your A player is creating the automation, it's better than 3 C players or D players hacking away at it.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. In theory. What about in practice?
I think that's true. I think it's true when you have the right people putting together automation and with the right tools, which, I think that's what we're going to talk about here is Nutanix having a tool or tools to do this with, which, first of all, let me just point this out. When I think automation tool sets, I guess using those within a Nutanix world, but I don't think of Nutanix as a provider of a set of tools like that. Is it just the fact that it helps Nutanix admins to have these tools, therefore Nutanix has the tools, and then what else can you use the tools for?
I think at some level, yes, for sure, right? Having the tools, knowing how to use the tools, kind of like the point you're making wise decisions about what to do with the tools, all important. This exact blog post and the surveys that it sort of sources as its data sets, I think take a bit of a wider view of the world, right? And more of a, what's the state of automation today? And it sort of reinforced what I would have guessed anecdotally, but it was interesting to put some stats on it, right? That at the top of the article here, this talks about you could say less than half of current IT tasks or routine IT tasks are automated in like 75% of all shops, IT shops. So like 70% of all, 3 out of every 4 IT shops, you go there and at least half the routine tasks that they do, right? And that's what I think is interesting, Andy, like, because obviously, low hanging fruit is kind of a tired phrase, but there's simpler things to automate and there's more complicated things to automate. And so if you're listening to this and you're in a shop that is like that, where automation is not the focus, right? Not integrated into a lot of routines, you're in great company, right? A lot of people are still at that step 1 of automation, right? Which often is like thinking thoughts about automation, not even doing it yet. But just because it's common doesn't necessarily make it right. Doesn't mean it's like where you need to stay to keep delivering value to the business. Thoughts on any of that? We've already had things we have different viewpoints on this article.
Well, and I think I'm just kind of a curmudgeon on it because I've seen so many people do it wrong, and maybe that's where it all starts, is having the wrong ideas or focusing on the wrong pieces or not doing it as a holistic team, right? And not having the whole organization looking for ways to automate in such ways that it becomes modular, but then you can group it all together. So Jaira, you were covering just now the numbers. Is this what you're talking about, that 70% of IT departments have automated less than half of what they possibly could?
Not only what they could, of just routine stuff, right? The boring stuff. I would think, typical move, adds, changes, user onboarding, all the things that are predictable workflows, right?
Right.
So I think you just gave a couple good examples. Harvey, would you have others that you'd give as layups for automating things?
Yes, creating a VM.
Yeah. It's on a long enough timeline, it's pretty much bound to happen. And the goalposts, right? They rarely change. It's like patch everything, maybe give it a scan, add it to all the known lists of like, here's the VMs that we, have in our environment, and, turn it over.
Yeah. Well, there's that piece of it. And then the part here, section 2 of the current state of automation in the blog here, that talks about just all the different tools. And you got an IT department using 15 different tools, and somebody's a SME on one and somebody else is a SME on the other, and none of them are tied together. Does it take someone in the organization to make a decision on, we're going to use this one and everybody's going to learn this one?
You can, right? For sure. I mean, there's certainly, like, standardization does certainly have benefits. It's also not required, right? In some ways, like learning to automate, like it's, if you're learning to script, like there's repeatable skills there that can apply to lots of different tools, right? So there's less need for like a deep-seated like religion around like, you have to do it this way, you have to use this language or use this tool. Like optionality is not necessarily a bad thing.
What about I guess maybe this is what my real concern is. You automate things and you always forget something. Is it just this constant iteration of fixing the automation? Is that what you see people doing? Or does it get to the point where, these tasks and these functions are so repeatable that those have been solved and now we move on to the next one?
Well, I think it would only be natural, right? And safe and wise to start with, of course, easier things to automate in your environment, right? Things that have a smaller blast radius that, if something goes awry, you'll hopefully notice first and you can fix it easily, right? Like that's just got to be where you start. Crawl, walk, run with anything, right? Beyond that, not knowing the specific incident you're thinking about, or maybe incidents, plural, that you're thinking about, I mean, the easy thing to mention here, right, would be like better monitoring, right? Let's know when something doesn't go according to plan, whether it's human manually deployed, performed, or it's automated. Either way, I want something watching the environment that knows what right looks like, that alerts me when something is not right.
And how good are these tools now? It talks about codeless automations where I'm not writing scripts. Are we to a point where dragging and dropping is a reality?
It definitely can be, and that's where we would encourage most people to start, right, is like in Prism Central using crossplay. It really is, it's pick out of a list of items, right? Like, create a VM, take a snapshot, add memory, add disks, typical small routine change tasks that, yeah, you can write with zero coding experience whatsoever, that you can run on a schedule, run on demand. They can even get integrated into ServiceNow.
Now,
So yeah, so the answer is yes.
is crossplay, is that kind of limited to the Nutanix types of tasks, or can that go outside of that spectrum of what a sysadmin might do and fall into other parts of the business?
It can talk to anything actually with an API. So it can run scripts, it can make calls. On the high end, it's really quite powerful. Yeah.
And are you guys seeing people use it outside of Nutanix, or most of what you're seeing is in Nutanix use cases?
Bit of both. The most interesting ones that I've seen so far are customers that are even implementing stuff, that they want to before we can get it shipped, right? I don't want to do this one task on one cluster. I want to do it on 15 clusters. I'll make my own API call within a crossplay function to crossplay playbook to do that for me, right? So like we'll probably ship that feature that they want in a quarter or two. They can go ahead and have it now by plugging a few API calls and a couple of buttons.
Hey, Harvey, are customers taking advantage of this, or they don't know exist?
I would say both. There are customers who are taking advantage of, I would say more so looking at this and trying to plan it out. But there are lots more that just don't even know that it exists. I mean, we kind of hit on it at the very beginning. I think everybody in IT knows that automation exists as a whole, but it is just not very well adopted or implemented right now. And I mean, you hit on a lot of the reasons that are going, but I mean, there are a lot of things to Jairus' point too that make sense to do, that are going to be very close to the same set of tasks, no matter what the environment is, and no matter what the hypervisor or what the policies are. Like a lot of that stuff will still be the same. And they speak in the blog too about the blueprints that are available that you can use to help you along the way to go down that path without everything having to be exactly the same. You've got some variables and knobs you can turn, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I don't see automation a lot, but for the most part, the people who are using it and going down that path want to do more and more and more. I don't run across customers who say they started down the path of automation and this doesn't work for us and just took it back out.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fair.
Well,
Well,
go ahead.
And I think we're probably going the same place, Andy, about the I agree with Harvey. It's not a lack of knowledge about automation is good or automation is out there, but why is it still not more widely deployed? Or why not more folks automate more things, right? And I think the next section is interesting, how it gets into some of the common, I don't know, I guess objections to automation, right? Or barriers to automation.
Yeah. So let's talk through number one here.
So what this survey found is as 40%, of organizations would say it's a budgetary challenge, right? Resources, right? What tools do I need to go buy? I don't have a budget for that, so I can't start automating things yet. It's interesting. As an IT practitioner, I would say it never held me back, right? Because like there's some automation you can always do. We would do just like a bash script or PowerShell, right. Where there's a will, like there's definitely open source to help with that. Is it going to give you a service now, self-hosted open source? No, like definitely, different kinds of automation definitely do cost money and need investment and alignment with business strategy. But that's also not, you don't start with ServiceNow day one and then say, now figure out, okay, what are we going to automate, right? Like crawl, walk, run.
That's exactly it. This to me is the chicken or egg conversation. So I can't do automation without going all the way in, or I don't want to do automation because I can't go all the way in, and you don't have to. To Jairus' point, you can start with things you can do through the shell or through PowerShell. Again, the things that are right in front of you that happen every day, all day, you can automate. And there are tools like what's already built into Crossplay, or like what's built into the Nutanix console, or like what's built into your hypervisor that can help you move forward in automation without having to buy more things off, just off the top when you're starting down that journey. So yeah, that's definitely a conversation that I see a good bit. But I'm waiting on number 2 because that's another one.
Yeah, I mean, and to tie number 1 off, right? It's like you could be a customer listening to this today. If you own Nutanix and Prism Central, you might be shocked what you can already do with Prism Central, like through Crossplay, right? Go into playbooks and just start doing it today. But yeah, I think number 2 is the juiciest one for me as well, Harvey. Right? Like it's basically summed up as cultural, right? Like we don't automate things. For lots of reasons, right? Maybe that's a silo thing, right? To get this whole script to work, to provision a VM, I've got to go work with that team or this team or the other. And we don't collaborate well with them. That's, of course, that's a process, an organizational challenge to address. And you certainly need vision and buy-in, from higher up on the org chart to break down silos like that. The bigger one, though, is even within a team, right? Like that fear of like, but this is my knowledge, this is, my job security. Right. And, there's no stats to combat that kind of a fear of automation, right? I feel like they're meaningful. That's subjective, not objective, but, I would say like, go read every blog post in the world, find anyone that really got burned by adding autonomy to their workplace, by automating more routine processes, right? Like if the security is in, hand-holding routine processes, I would say that's not great security, right? You're almost you're better off served as an IT practitioner, leveling up your skill set to say, well, now I know how to wrangle this type of automation, right? And run with this kind of checks and balances and safety nets in place, right? To avoid like what Andy, hates about like automation gone wrong. Like that's a better skill set than saying I can do all these things manually by hand, right? Like if I was looking at a resume, that's much more marketable, more meaningful. That's setting you up for better long-term success as the practitioner, right? So like, I'm not invalidating the whole sort of fear of automation equals that means I don't have a job to do.
Right.
But every customer I've ever talked to, their team gets more done as a team. They can tackle bigger projects, knock them out sooner, deliver with more success back to the business. Every single time I've ever talked to people. That's my perspective. That's my viewpoint. What have you guys seen?
So I would say the mantra in IT is, was, and always will be do more with less. And this is a way for you to do that. I mean, if you are in the business of hiring, more people on the security team who will watch what the admins did, who were watching over what happened in networking, you're just in the business of building out bigger and bigger teams who are going to take that kind of silo approach and make it that much more worse, right? Because you're just bringing in more and more people to watch over the more and more people that you brought in some other area. When you have the option of utilizing a person from each of those disciplines or a couple of people from each of those disciplines to hammer out a process to take care of in one fell swoop what the people are normally doing each and every day. I've had a few conversations in a prior life previous to XenTegra around automation and the kind of thought process that we had is if you know you're going to do something more than 3 or 4 times this week, every week, you should probably automate that because you're so subject to human error. Something as simple as we need every VM to have these 50 patch levels, but that particular one that screws up .NET and then messes with this application that we have internally, if that's not followed to a T every single time, you're going to have problems that result from that every single time. So the way to get yourself a predictable outcome that crosses all the check marks off that everybody needs, you know, in all of the different disciplines and silos you have, is to automate something like that.
Well, it reminds me also, it's almost like a microcosm of like what IT needs to be to the business is what the IT practitioner needs to be within IT itself, right? Like IT is not, we run these VMs, we make these lights blink, you know, we keep these things online, then that's our job. No, your job is to actually enable the business, right? Do things faster, better, you know, help with business outcomes and align to those things. And I say microcosm because that philosophy implemented at the individual level is I help my department deploy faster, more repeatedly, get things done faster, right? Knock out projects and objectives, again, for IT, but therefore for the business as well, right? So it's almost, you'd be, if you were part of a healthy IT organization, you know, serving the business, right, and trying to be a value adder, if you weren't trying to automate in the same way, you might be taking an opposing viewpoint, right? And that's not going to maybe go well.
Right.
So you guys see the one I put on the screen here?
I'm already laughing.
So I don't want to sit here and say I'm the anti-automate guy, because I'm absolutely not. I'm just scared of the power of it. I'm this one school that you hear the stories of. I think it's true, where they automated some kind of event, caused every, you know, some automation process to go wipe every hard drive on the network. Does anybody know if this is true or not?
I've heard it enough. I do believe it actually is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that
I think it's a perfect segue, right? The third one here, like roadblock to automation, complexity, right?
Yes.
And, you know, like whether that's, you know, training or complicated tooling, or I might say, you know, not starting with bite-sized automation, right? What's the scope of failure of this automation? Is it, you know, I can wipe every computer on campus? Maybe not the best first project, you know, like, let's start smaller somewhere else, right? Fail fast.
Well, right. And that also speaks to making sure you have a process in place. You can't just say, I'm going to automate and then automate something like that. And then, oops, I sent it to every PC in the organization. I mean, that is a headache that happens. I mean, something like that has happened to a group I was managing before. I just happened to be standing up, you know, close enough to hear somebody say, "Hey, have you ever done an authoritative restore?" And I turned around like, "Why are you asking that question?"
That's a terrifying question. No one idly wonders that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not one you want somebody to just casually be thinking about.
No. And it wasn't that he was casually thinking about it either. That was a real question that he needed to ask.
Yeah.
That, you know, I kind of think, I don't know or care how far I was away from him when he said that out loud. I think I would have heard it from across 2 rooms. That's you do have to have a process in place. You do have to make sure that the people you're doing the automation with are properly trained in doing the automation, and that they prove it in a smaller proving ground than the full production floor. So
back when I learned PowerShell, there was this wonderful flag called -what if. It just says, don't do what I'm really writing here. Just tell me what you would do if you were doing it for real.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and that, I mean, I did this past weekend, I finished writing some like Linux shell scripting just for a personal server that I needed an auto update mechanism for software that doesn't have an auto update mechanism. So it just runs and checks for new versions, then installs it if it can. And man, I've commented the heck out of that thing, right? And it like spits out, you know, lines left and right, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like it tells me what it's doing, because I'm a novice coder at best. And so I want the visibility into what is the machine doing when it's doing it on its own, because that's the kind of telemetry that I need when I'm writing it. So yeah, for sure, right? There's certainly good safety nets to put in there.
Yeah.
Automation can affect everyone in the organization. It says right there in the text, Andy. So yeah,
everyone in the organization. Yeah, look, I get it. It's got to be done. It needs to be automated, especially the easy let's call it the easy benign stuff that should be automated. It's just,
Well,
you know,
right,
let
especially.
me run this one by you guys real quick. Driver, this weekend, did you drive anywhere?
Yeah,
Did you drive down a 2-lane road?
yes,
Were there cars coming the other direction?
there sure were.
How in the heck do you trust the people driving the other direction?
Oh, I don't.
But you
Those people are
have
idiots.
to. You have to drive down a 2-lane road, but you don't
Yep.
trust the other people. My
Yeah.
example here is you have to automate, but you don't trust everybody around you doing the work. It is it's a delicate
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, as a general rule, if the person you're talking to about automation says, oh yeah, this is easy, you just do this, probably not the person you want to talk to about automation.
That know-it-all guy in IT is not the guy you really want doing your automation.
No, if I'm talking about automation, the first conversation that we're having is going to discuss the actual risks behind what we're talking about and what we're proposing before we even get into how in the world are we going to do it, because you have to design your automation around making sure those things don't happen. To Andy, to your 2-lane road example, you have to do what you can to stop those other drivers from coming into your lane. I mean, it's great to trust you with the steering wheel, but you have to trust everybody and everything else.
Yeah.
And with automation, that's a good point too that we didn't cover yet. But with automation, you're not just trusting the script you wrote, you're trusting every other piece that it has to touch in order to accomplish what you wrote the script to accomplish.
Well, I mean, this is definitely a threat and also an opportunity, right? Like, I mean, in some sense, right? Automation, infrastructure as code, right? Rapid deployments, where we can steal concepts that have existed in software development for a long time, right? Peer programming, code reviews exist for rational reasons, right? It's almost even it would be almost a waste of time to imagine that everyone in IT has an identical skill set, right? You're going to have people on your team that are better at understanding the process, but not as good at writing the code for it, right? People are better at writing the code, and but they don't know what it needs to be doing, right? So they need the process handed to them, right? Give me the whiteboard, give me the flow chart, and I think it's just natural, right? That people have different strengths there, and I think that helps as well, right? It's not every person has to go write their own bash scripts, their own PowerShell. You know, there's no reason that we can't have stronger folks helping out folks that are better at other things to get that developed, right, with better oversight on what's running there.
Yeah, I am not the code writer, but I understand the logic all the way through, and I'll tell you where it can hang up.
that goes back to in like high school, what were we doing? Visual Basic, I guess.
Oh gosh.
My best friend's dad, I mean, worked with his hands for a living, right? Didn't really do computers, but could help him troubleshoot his code, right? Because he could read it, understand the concepts, and say, oh, you've got a logic flaw here, because the guy knew logic all day long, just didn't know Visual Basic, right? Specifically. Right. So yeah, for sure, that kind of gifting is definitely out there.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the next section, roadmap to greater automation. There we even talk about this one, but yes, let's automate more. So let's go.
We'll drag Andy along kicking and screaming. Make it, I think it's not really a tooling specific blog post. Of course, with Nutanix, we're a platform that believes you need to be automating more. We try to make it as easy for you to automate our platform in a number of different ways, whether that's external scripting, cross-play blueprints, cross-play playbooks on us in Prism Central, Calm running in Prism Central or outside of it, just straight up scripting at the shell level, ServiceNow integration, wherever you are on your automation journey, right? Nutanix can plug into that. With a goal, right, of making automation easier to adopt, right? And hopefully with ease comes, to Andy's concern, safety as well, right? Like, let's try it, let's verify it, let's monitor it, let's test it.
So did I lose you? Sorry. Harvey, are you frozen?
Oh, no.
Sorry.
I didn't know that you called on me. Maybe I was frozen and didn't know
I didn't.
that
I
in
got
post.
distracted. I got
We'll fix it in
distracted
post.
by something else.
it.
You know,
Squirrel.
somebody sent me a file that I needed, and I just assumed they named it the way I think they should have, which was put their name in it somewhere, and they didn't. They abbreviated their name, and you know I deal with a lot of millennials that like to abbreviate and use acronyms for everything. And so I have to kind of like this conversation. I have to get what I get from them. Then I have to take it and I have to fix everything that comes in so that it has the proper naming convention, and they don't, I can't trust. It's like zero trust that they're going to do it right. Maybe that's my whole problem with the automation stuff is I just don't trust that people are going to put the effort really into it.
We millennials, we just say AFO. We don't actually say acronyms for everything.
That's the first time I've heard that one, but it makes 100%. It makes 100% sense. Well, let me translate that to millennial. That makes 110% sense.
And we all gave 110% at our job today.
That's right. Give 110%. You can't do that. All right. It's that fuzzy math, I think is what they called it. Well, so guys, let's look at this last picture, right? Transformation priorities, automation, data center modernization projects. I have to assume that digital, well, data center modernization, is that considered digital transformation?
Yeah, it can be for sure, right? And self-service automation, right? How do workloads get spun up?
Yeah. I mean, according to this, automation is a massive priority for a lot of organizations.
Well, and I like the way it's phrased too, automation and productivity enhancement, right?
Yeah.
So, how do we give people back time, right? To let them, tackle bigger projects. So
Right.
I think it speaks to the focus.
Well, I think it's come up a couple times a day in things I've been doing about finding ways to make the routine automated or make it seamless so that we can go do the other stuff that we need to focus on. I guess one of the challenges I have in this is people tend to look past this, like they want to go tackle the hard stuff, or not the fun stuff.
The fun
And
stuff.
some of this stuff isn't
The
fun, but
sexy
it has the
stuff, as
greatest,
I call it.
it has a lot of valuable reward if we go
Right.
and tackle this.
Right. And to your point, the things that you would automate first would be the most mundane of mundane things,
Mhm.
so that you can build your platform and build from there. You don't start with the nice, juicy project, because that's the one that gets you your resume generating event.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I get for thinking out loud on podcasts, but like, don't you think there has to be some sense of like organizational muscle memory, right? That says, before we go after the big juicy targets, right? Let's get good at just automating things, whether they're important or not, whether they are a large scope or not. Let's just practice our automation muscles, build our automation muscles in general on small things, right? Like working out, before we tackle those things, right? And that's just sort of a disciplined rollout approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a situation not too long ago at XenTegra where, an individual wanted to automate everything, but the basic things like turning in your timesheet and your expense report, I couldn't get them to do that. Like that wasn't fun. Automating everything and showing everybody how smart you were was more fun.
You mean I should jog a little bit before I decide to go run this marathon?
I'm really in no position to recommend that. If I'm saying that, I'm saying that to both of us.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate us talking through this. Is there anything on the Nutanix side, Jaira, that we'd want to kind of highlight above and beyond what we've talked about a little bit around what you guys are doing to make automation in the Nutanix world and beyond more realistic?
I would say, we've got like 18 bazillion different ways to get your feet wet on this, like including, try it on the code you might already be running on your Nutanix cluster, or try it in a boot camp, try it in a hands-on test drive. Talk to your account team about it if you've got questions, and bring a real world example if you want to have a better conversation. Absolutely. Right? If we want to solve how would we solve this problem, right? Using Nutanix tooling we're already entitled to. And that's the best way to have the most productive conversation the fastest.
Mhm. And at what point does some of the Nutanix products fit? Do they come as part of suites, or are they all bolt on?
Yeah, so Prism Central is where a lot of them run. So you probably already have the software to run it. And then Crossplay is part of Prism Central right there. A lot of customers use that very successfully for, managing their environment, managing multiple clusters, getting analytics into their workloads. And then really the walk and the run step of that would be moving from that into Calm to run blueprints that might get, like I said, developed by maybe more senior architects in the organization, and then deployed by maybe more junior folks or even lines of business in a self-service fashion. And the run would be plugging that into like ServiceNow. So kind of that whole gamut of crawl, walk, run, meeting you wherever you are on your automation journey.
Right. Okay. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining, and we're way after 5, and I appreciate you guys being part of this even after the work day is done. Well, kind of
Done. What was that?
Well, you know what?
I'm only at 109% so far, Andy. I got to get to 100.
That's right. I gotta get there.
Well, maybe you should automate more of your day so you can work more, and then you can keep getting more work done, and then you'll just kill over dead at some point.
I should definitely automate more of my inbox, right? I can just send the same response to everyone. Just say, no, go away.
Well, they do call it auto reply. So
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Nice.
Work smarter, not harder.
I went looking for out of office, and I do this every so often, and I forget it's not called that anymore. It's called auto reply. And
That is
I should just leave this on all the time.
good.
All right, guys.
Think
Well, I
about what you just sent
appreciate
me. Did you really need to send that?
All right, guys. Thank you.
Cool.
Yep.
Talk to y'all.
See you.